Sean Fletcher, and I'm here representing both me and Isabel Riker, which is actually quite the opposite of how it usually goes. So this is a treat for me. I get to say whatever I want. We sort of focused in the description of this panel on the concept that failure may or may not be necessary in the collaborative process. Now, what we wrote was really, I mean, first of all, we spent a good deal of time trying to figure out what that meant. What is a failed work of art? What's a successful work of art? And figured that in order to really do this, you had to separate the failure or success of the collaboration from the failure or success of the work of art. Because you could have a really successful work of art that was the result of a completely failed collaboration. Or vice versa, you could have a very successful collaboration, which is a miserable piece of work. So we're not still really sure how to define what that failed or successful work of art is, but what we thought was probably if you narrow the criteria down to one that we think is really important, we would probably say that adversity is one of the things that a successful work of art has to have. And by adversity, we really mean a different point of view than the one that came before. And without challenging prevailing notions, you can't really further the intellectual dialogue. So, of any worthwhile endeavor, whether it's film or game design or high finance. So this doesn't really mean that if a work of art has adversity in it, that it's successful, but it also means that it really couldn't be successful without that particular element. For us, that notion of adversity, I mean, dialogue is really kind of polite, you know, and we want to get along, so we have a dialogue. But I think for Isabel and I, that emotional thing that you carry into an argument, that you really want somebody to see your point of view, is kind of necessary and really quite beautiful. So we tend to argue in our work when we're collaborating. And it's an argument with each other, it's an argument with the subject matter, it's an argument with history, it's an argument between the work of art and the people that are looking at it. But it's all in there, and at least initially, we'll really refuse to take a stand and put that out there to stimulate the argument. We define a successful collaboration as having two important traits. So when you're referring to the collaboration itself, there's two things that we think it has to have in order to be successful. And the first is that the collaborators, both or all, make some essential contribution to the core of the work. In other words, for the collaboration to be successful, that hubris of the individual owning the idea has to be abandoned in favor of collective improvement. And second, that the collaboration becomes a process, and a motivation, and a creative journey by which the work of art is made. And what we'll present here for just a few minutes, I won't have a few minutes, but 1 minute probably, is part of a research paper that compares and contrasts the work of Christo and Jean-Claude with the work of a project called NE Thing Company. Both of these two projects involved married couples, and both of these two projects operated under a corporate identity. Well, actually, Christo and Jean-Claude still operate under a corporate identity called Christo Corporation. Where Christo and Jean-Claude differ from NE Thing Company goes by Netco too, so I'll just say Netco now to save time, is really the inclusion of help from the outside. So naturally, in order to realize the work of art, Christo and Jean-Claude need the support of the community. This piece here on your right is a piece that was done at the same time as the piece on the left. It was the wrapping of Little Bay in Australia. And they needed the Army Corps of Engineers, and they needed the person that owned the property. They needed their input, they needed their help, but they didn't necessarily need their collaboration. They just needed them to say yes or no. And in contrast, Netco, when they did a piece, the piece was the result of the corporation. So the two of them actually took their own identity out of the work, and neither of them stepped forward and said, my name is Ian Baxter, and I'm doing this piece with Ingrid Baxter. It was Ian and Ingrid Baxter doing this work under the auspices of Netco. We're also a married couple, and actually at one point we also formed a corporation, and this is our corporation called Death and Taxes, Inc. And for our corporation, we formed an S-Corp, and we had a board of relative strangers, people we didn't really know before this project. There were 15 of them. and we handed over to them the fiscal responsibility of running our lives. So we had them approve a budget, and anytime we were going to go over the budget by $100 or more, we needed their approval. So we had quarterly board meetings, we created financial reports, and then we figured walking into this thing, and the reason I think it's relevant for this conversation is that we were going to collaborate like we normally do on a piece of artwork together, and then we're going to get these tools together, the way that Christo Corporation gets tools together and have them do our bidding to do this piece. And actually what happened is this board got together and took responsibility and actually changed things and really undermined what we were hoping was going to be the collaboration between the two of us. And so this really wound up being a whole collaboration of the board and us to run this company. And it was kind of an interesting thing that happened over the course of that year. And then I think this will just wrap it. I'll just go through this one and we'll go. This is in contrast to that. More recently, what we've done is written a play, which is a dialogue between Carl Andre and Anna Mendieta, and really focuses on this fatal relationship that the two of them had, and tries to recreate the last argument that these two people might have had together in their apartment in 19. So, other than to say that I think that the successful collaborating there was in Isabel and I writing this piece. We would argue the way that we typically do. We'd argue about whether this should be more historic or whether this should be more poetic. And then I would sit down and write from Carl's point of view, she would sit down and write from Anna's point of view. But I don't know that our collaboration extended to the actors themselves. I think we told the actors what to do.
Well, it might be important to that. It might be important to that in this particular collaboration, we interrupt the play at key points, and we ask the actors to repeat certain beats and to, can you say this again? Or we give some background information about Carl and Anna to make them understand who these people were. So it is, in some sense, a collaboration between us and the actors, because they then have to, with a greater understanding of the characters, have to do it again. But that's, I really quickly want to go back to an ME thing that Carl and Christo and Jean-Claude, because we compared them, because we felt that in the case of Christo and Jean-Claude, it's not really a collaborative effort, although it seems like one. Just to define what collaboration is. Netco, on the other hand, they collaborated and were able to dissolve their, egos and create something new under a corporate umbrella. So anyhow, we were thinking, okay, well, Death and Taxes was successful, just because the outcome was really determined by everybody. In this case, as a collaboration, I would say it's not, I have a hard time with the word successful, because it is successful, but as a collaboration it might not be successful because the actors don't really have an input. They have control over the outcome, but they don't contribute to the idea.